The greatest mystery of our sky has become even stranger. Scientists speculate it could be an alien ship powered by nuclear energy. There are things in space that we are not meant to understand, and we have just learned this firsthand. Comet Triatlas, a traveler from a distant star, was supposed to be a scientific wonder, but as it approached, it revealed its true nature. Four of our most advanced space telescopes observed it in unison as the object changed to a hostile, blood-red color, a shade that contradicts astrophysics. It was not a discovery, but an activation, and now the U.S. Space Forces are preparing for a scenario that until last week seemed pure science fiction. Red alert in the abyss. In the cold, silent theater of space, we are accustomed to certain rules. Comets glow with a ghostly green or blue, asteroids have a dull gray color, and stars shine with predictable light. But not everything is so simple. On a day that will surely be remembered in closed circles for decades, these rules were broken. The story begins with 3 Atlas. Opened just a year ago, it was officially designated as the third interstellar object ever discovered, a visitor from another solar system passing through our celestial backyard. For several months, it behaved exactly as expected. It was a dim, unclear object moving at an incredible speed of 100,000 miles per hour, becoming brighter as it approached the sun. Astronomers from around the world were thrilled, a rare opportunity to study a piece of another star system. Then, everything changed. It happened unexpectedly. The first signal came from the Spitzer telescope, an observatory capturing the universe in the infrared spectrum. It recorded a sharp and significant temperature spike from the comet's core. This was unusual but not unprecedented. Comets can break apart and release trapped gases. But what happened next was a real shock. The James Webb Telescope, the most powerful ever built, was also monitoring the event. Its data arrived within minutes, and the scientists couldn't believe their eyes. The coma, the blurred atmosphere around the comet, was changing color. The typical cyan and green glow caused by sunlight, exciting diatomaceous carbon faded, giving way to a deep, pulsing blood-red hue. Such a color is a huge red flag. In astronomy, red can mean many things, such as the presence of complex organic molecules called tholins, or the stretching of light from a rapidly moving object. But it was not that. The shade was too pure and uniform. It resembled more a light switch being flipped than a natural phenomenon. To ensure it wasn't a sensor error, observatories were put on alert. The legendary Hubble telescope was repurposed, its sharp vision confirming Webb's data. Then even the retired Kepler telescope was used in its extended mission to measure the light curve. The results were the same for our 4 best instruments. 3 eyes have now become a hostile object of bright red color, emitting their own light rather than merely reflecting sunlight. What no one talks about is that the light was not constant. It pulsed with a complex repeating rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. This heartbeat occurred every 84.6 seconds. It was a signal. The scientific community was officially in a state of controlled panic. It was no longer a comet. A comet was a dirty snowball. It was something entirely different, pretending to be a comet. It used solar energy to drop its cover and begin transmitting something. The data was immediately tagged and sent through a chain of commands that extended far beyond NASA. They ended up on the desks of a very specific group of people at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Because when an object from another star system suddenly activates a huge red pulsating light, it ceases to be scientific curiosity. It becomes a matter of national security, not a Comet Icarus protocol. Once the data was confirmed, the situation changed drastically. Now it was no longer a matter for astronomers in tweed jackets. It became the work of military analysts and cryptanalysts. The United States Space Forces, the newest branch of the armed forces, were created specifically for such scenarios. A potential threat from beyond Earth. For several hours, a secret group was formed, codenamed Project Icarus. Their sole task was to determine what the 3 eyes were, what it wanted, and whether it posed a threat. The first step was to analyze the pulsation. This rhythmic beat every 84.6 seconds was too perfect to be natural. Natural objects in space spin and rotate, but this was as regular as a clock. Analysts from the National Security Agency, also known as NSA, were brought into work. They are the best cryptanalysts on the planet, but usually work with emails and phone calls. Now they needed to find patterns in the light from the transformed comet, located hundreds of millions of miles away. They quickly discovered that the pulsation was not just a simple on-off. In every pulse of red light were trillions of smaller, faster oscillations, a complex flow of information hidden within the main signal. It was as if an entire library was concealed within a single word. The problem was that they had no way to decipher it. It was a language based on physics that they were just beginning to understand. While the cryptanalysts worked, the Space Forces were busy directing all available sensors at the object. This included the Space Observation Network, a global system of telescopes and radars designed to track satellites and space debris. They were trying to get a clearer picture of the three eyes. They needed to know its exact dimensions, shape, and composition. The initial data was as confusing as the color. The object was about 2 miles long and resembled a long, thin shard of glass, but the radar data made no sense. At times, the object seemed completely absorbed by the radar, like a stealth bomber. At other times, it reflected radar signals with incredible intensity. However, what no one talks about is what the thermal signature showed. While the object's outer shell glowed red, its core remained at just 3 degrees above absolute zero. This is minus 454 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a scientific impossibility. Nothing can emit so much light and energy on the surface, while its core is close to the lowest temperature possible in the universe. This contradicts the laws of thermodynamics. It was as if an icy orb was at the center of a burning fire. This single fact was the most terrifying of all. It meant that the object utilized a form of technology completely unknown to us. It was not just a more advanced version of our technology. It was something completely different, based on another understanding of physics. That is why the level of anxiety was heightened. It was not just an object sending a signal. It was an object capable of manipulating energy and matter in ways we could not imagine. The question was no longer what he was saying. Now it was about what he could do. A long gaze from the Pentagon. As global intelligence agencies were completely baffled by the signal, Project Icarus shifted its focus from decoding to defense. Now the mission was not about understanding the message. It was about preparing for the messenger. The first and most important question concerned his trajectory. Where was Tri-Atlas heading? Initial forecasts showed it would orbit the sun and then be ejected back into interstellar space, never to return. But it was no longer a predictable chunk of rock and ice. It was an object under intelligent control, and many do not understand that even a small change in its path could have enormous consequences. With the combined power of the world's largest radio telescopes, the Space Forces began a constant monitoring campaign. They searched for any signs of course correction, any slight movement from the thruster that could indicate the object was self-controlled. For several weeks, nothing happened. It continued on its original comet-like trajectory. Some in the Pentagon began to relax. Perhaps it was just a strange natural phenomenon. Maybe it was just a light show. But the veterans on the USSF knew better. In military affairs, you don't show your cards until it's necessary. And if this object was a probe, or something larger, it would not make a single move until it was ready. And then it happened. The change was so slight that it was almost unnoticed. The object passed through Mars's orbit and, as it turned out, did not slow down as it should have. The gravity of Mars was supposed to slightly pull him, altering his trajectory by a small but measurable distance. But that did not happen. It seemed that the gravity of an entire planet had no significance for him. For an object 2 miles long, this was an astonishing revelation. This meant that the three-eyed Atlas had some internal mechanism that allowed it to resist the very force of gravity. It actively countered the gravitational pull of the planets. This was the conclusive proof they needed. It was an artificial object, a ship, a probe, something with a specific purpose. The mood inside Project Icarus shifted from tense observation to serious concern. They now had to deal with technology capable of neutralizing gravity. Our most advanced rockets are still controlled explosions. We were like primitive people throwing spears, while this creature was a ghost able to pass through walls. The alarm was quietly raised. Special satellite groups were activated, tasked with developing defense strategies. How to stop something that gravity cannot touch. How to protect against technology that is impossible to even begin to understand. No one tells you that at this moment the mission has expanded. The U.S. military space forces began to study not only the three-eyed Atlas, but also what was happening on Earth. Were there other strange signals? Any unusual observations of unidentified aerial phenomena? They operated on the basis of a terrifying new premise. The three-eyed Atlas. Perhaps it is not alone. Perhaps he is just a scout. A confrontation with the unknown. For anyone trying to comprehend this, it may seem like a plot straight out of Hollywood. A mysterious object from another star. A strange signal. A secret military group. It's easy to dismiss this, but the fact is that it's not about faith, but about data. It's about our 4 most reliable scientific instruments that report the same impossible story. It's about radar and thermal indicators that violate known laws of physics. We found ourselves in a new world, whether we were ready for it or not. The trajectory of the three-eyed atlas still leads it to the nearest approach to the sun. After that, it will again plunge into the abyss. But no one in the Icarus project believes it will simply go quietly. Perhaps we are missing a key detail that could explain all this simply and naturally? Scientists are desperately searching for an answer, but with each passing hour, this possibility seems less likely. We are faced with a conclusion that is as humbling as it is frightening. Someone or something has sent a probe into our solar system, a probe that far surpasses our technology. It may have traveled thousands or even millions of years. And now that it is here, it has turned on a light. He announced his presence. This leads us to ask the main question. Why? Why now? If a civilization has the technology to create a probe that ignores gravity and glows, they undoubtedly had the means to hide it. They could have passed through our system completely unnoticed. But they chose not to. They changed the world. They changed the object to a hostile, impossible color. They began transmitting a complex, pulsing signal. It was not an accident. It was a deliberate act. Inside the Icarus project, the discussion is no longer about what it is, but why it is here, and some truly wild theories are now taken seriously. One of the concepts, known as the beacon theory, suggests that the message may not be intended for us. In this scenario, a three-dimensional atlas serves as an ancient warning beacon, and our solar system is about to enter a dangerous part of the galaxy, or perhaps an invisible threat is approaching us. The red light is not hostile to us. It is a sign of galactic danger, a cosmic signal of a closed road that has just been activated. We are merely witnesses living near the beacon. There is a darker theory gaining popularity, the harbinger theory. She suspects that this object is a highly advanced terraforming machine or a seed ship. A sudden burst of energy and a change in color may signify the beginning of its primary function, the release of clouds of microscopic self-replicating machines designed to alter our atmosphere, oceans, or biology in preparation for future colonization. The hostile red glow in this case will be the color that our world begins to change into. And finally, there is the most alarming of all theories, the litmus test. Proponents of this idea believe that the creators of the object are watching us right now. The whole situation is a disguise of a comet, a dramatic change of color, an indeterminate signal. This is a carefully planned psychological test. They want to see how we react to something completely beyond our understanding. Do we respond with fear and aggression? Is this the scenario of first contact or a prelude to something we are not ready for?